So I've made you as host so you can share the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, trying to. So this one. Okay, that's. I think I lost it. Batch Apex. Okay. No, I created. I copied. Okay. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Let me show you this one. So label dot record restaurant record type. So
Mhm.
it's throwing exception here. So if I go to
So go to setup and see there, and you have labels created. No, not
yeah,
there. Just go to home to generic setup. So you can type their labels.
okay, labels.
Hey, one more thing is that I want to have a question is why you aren't a service setup? You have to be go there. Yeah, click on a setup, just not service setup. Just click on setup. So when you are dealing with service setup, you are in the service cloud setup. So be always into the
Okay,
setup side. So now
okay,
once you do it, is universally accepted. Yeah.
label, custom
Yeah.
label.
Yeah. Click that. Click on that.
Okay,
So yeah, there's no record type.
okay, I need to create one record type here. Okay,
Just go click on new custom label and then give the same name what we have given there.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's it. Save.
No, you have to give a value. So those are the names that you given. Here you have to give restaurant as a record type. If at all there is a record type present in your R as restaurant,
Yeah, yeah. There's
then it's good. Done. Yeah, now the record type is available. Um, you can
go
go
to
back.
that.
You can go back to the Apex class and then remove that line and then you have to save it. Let's see that.
Okay, I think I commented on that for debugging. Yeah, it's compiling.
Yeah, try to save this class. Yeah, it got saved. So
Okay.
that your record type has been accepted now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it should be in my
Yeah, it should be
admin
in setup.
class. I maybe missed that, right? Admin class. Still, I need to review that.
Oh, no problem. So go to the setup always. So service setup indicates that you are doing something setting on to the service cloud.
Ah,
So,
okay, okay.
so
You need to do the regular
yeah, the
setup.
first, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think whatever object then I create in Service Cloud, will not be visible in regular with this one, right? Then
You try to check them. I mean, the object which if you try to create in service setup.
they are there, right? They are already there. I already created the same thing. Um,
Yeah, now of course in service cloud also we have these objects and all those would be again
yeah, yeah. I
universal.
think it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
ideally,
Yeah.
be on this setup side so that we don't have any confusion.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So now let me. Can you make me as a host so that I'll start presenting?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, how to make you a presenter?
So stop screen, stop sharing the screen, and in the participant list you would see my name, and there would be more option. Click on that and make me as host.
Yeah, done.
So let me know once you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, I'm able to see your screen.
So I think in the last class we were talking about future methods and why we all use this future because they're helping out in the callouts or they're helping out in the mixed DML errors. So these are the two important things even if in the interview they ask a question, and I think this would be the important points. Otherwise, overall, so we are talking about this asynchronous epics, right? So the moment we start with asynchronous epics. So why all these four things are important? If someone asks this question, for that there's an answer. Um, why async? Why async? First of all, why async apex is required? Why async apex is required? Asynchronous program, why you required? So generally, if you are trying to process a millions of records, then it's a huge number of records. It's a long-running task. So
Yeah.
you can't do with a single transaction. Let's say in one go, I cannot run a millions of records because of the governor limits which you have. So why we say the governor limits is all about, hey, you have a little resources of a systems which is shared resources of a public cloud which Salesforce has provided you, and that cannot be overused. So with a minimal set of a percentage of CPU usage, so we have to run the logic because it's a shared network. Maybe if I give a more space to you and someone who has also shared the same space, because of you, someone should not be impacted. All are equally paid and all are equally shared the CPU resources of Salesforce, whatever the shared public cloud they're giving it, so that maybe you cannot use it more, so the others can be impacted. So what they do that is they have set some governor limits for each and every hour or each and every people who are registered with the Salesforce. Okay, this is the limitation that we given to you. So do whatever that within this only you try to run it. Now, if I want to do it, then millions of records I want to process. So they have set some governor rules. Okay, for one DML activity for a single transactions, if you do a 10,000 records insert update, whatever the DML you do, so that is what we can do max. So they have set the unique governor setup rules for across all the people who are getting registered with Salesforce. Now, based on this CPU usage only, we can do this. And we can't do in one go of millions of records. So 10,000 records if I can do in single transaction. So somehow my millions of records can be run in chunk. So for the first point, what we're going to say is it's a long running task. We use it. These async apex. Now this is the very short form of answering the people saying that why this asynchronous apex is required. People can ask you, see under this only batch apex schedule queueable feature all these are flying under. So why we require this if you ask? Generally other programs also the same way we're writing it, but the syntax we are simply matching up to batch class or a schedule class, or we're writing a queueable, or we're writing a simple feature methods. But these are helping you out a majority times. But we say, hey, this is used for long running tasks. You are trying to process millions of records. So with a prolonged amount of time, it should run all the millions of records. If I say, of course, this is a long running task. And then we use majority for the callouts. So callouts means it's an integration task where you try to hit or invoke a service or expose a service to third party people, where you try to call a service from third party, so get all the records to Salesforce, or we create a nano service that we expose to someone, so they are trying to invoke us. So anyways, whatever it is, you're trying to call someone, and again in millions of records you're processing it. So for those tasks, these guys async and apex are the best one. So call it means it is basically integration.
Did we talk about Queueable Apex? Maybe I missed it. Right.
No, we didn't talk yet, but I'm saying firstly why
Okay.
async apex.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have been talked about this, and in future also we have talked about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
overall why async, if people ask in general question, so this would match for everyone here. So I just wanted to add 4 or 5 points here, and then we'll continue on to the future and comparing the cube.
Okay.
So that is my agenda. And process with bulk data, I will say bulk data operations. So we know it's a long running task, but you are processing a millions of records in a chunk by chunk. So we say it as a bulk data operations. We do it. And the fourth point, um, we say so any mixed DMLs comes in. And this is not specific to a future or a cubable. It is generic specific to async apex. So they may not be interested to go get to tell me about future method. So they may say ask you the questions like why async apex is required. So these are the 4 to 5 points if you say. So then they may get into the individual task. Let's say if you say bulk data. So do we have any such logic to write a bulk data? Then you say easily we can use a batch apex and then run in chunk by chunk. Why mix HTML? So how do you avoid this? Using a feature method, you can avoid them. So by answering this, there would be another chain of question asking again to associate to whatever you want to answer. Now, collect can be done only in the future. No, it can be done in each and everything. Batch, Apex, schedulable, queueable, future, whatever you have, you can have a colors like basically integrations you can have across. Of course, all are long running process. It's not like one record you can tag and you can do it. Whenever the CPU resources available, only this asynchronous can work on. So why we say CPU resource available only then you run, because we don't know how much records that you're progressing in, and these are fire and forget concepts. Asyncs are fire and forget concepts. Yes, of course I fired it out, and then it gonna execute when our CPU, say Salesforce CPU's resources are available. Only then they execute. But let's say, for example, already a batch is running and they are occupied the CPU resources. First, they will allow you to run. The existing one has to run. Until then, they will be in the queue. Okay, let me run. Once he is getting free. Till then, it will wait. All this process, till then, it will wait. So they don't just break someone's already running a logic and then this guy starts running. No. So they will wait for it. So that is what we say is when the CPU resource is available, these guys all will execute. So again, to avoid mixed DML operations, we use this. So basically, again, that will be a good point. Avoid mixed DML operations. And the fifth point I would say is by doing this, we can do higher governor limits. Of course, we are saying that I would try to process millions of records, but actually, you are supposed to do only 10,000 records an update or a DML activity can do, and maximum you can query up to 50,000 records only. Using query 50,000 records, you can do a DML activity of 10,000 records. But according to this batch epics and all, if you see, so we are trying to progress millions of records. So then we have set up the governor limits as higher, right? So we have break the normal norms of what Salesforce is saying. And while doing with the batch epics, yes, of course, we're running by chunk by chunk. However, we are achieving the logic. End of the day, we are progressing the millions of records. So that is the reason I was saying that it is, yes, it is higher in the governor limits. So these are the very few important points generally talk on to the async apex. Someone asks this question, these 5 points you can say. So this would give a real punch. Okay, they know that by seeing these points, you have gone about this and gone through about this. I mean, this will be good impact. Each and every point that we say, so there will be chain of questions, of course. So avoid mixed daemon. How do you do it? Let's say batch epics. Future method. Higher Gordon limits. Of course, any of these logic which you use, we are trying to use higher Gordon limits. We're trying to extend the Gordon limits. An example would be batch epics. Millions of records are progressing and chunk by chunk you're doing it. So we have broken the logic of 10,000 records only you can update. So we can update now millions of records. So that you can say. And call it of course can be applied in any of them. And overall all can be a long running process because round run task, which it's not indicating that only 1,000 records I'm running it. I can run millions of records. Then it'll take its own sweet time. So these are the important points to talk about on why async apex. So already I would have talked about why async and apex is required. But these are the 5 key punch points to answer any when people ask you questions on it. So I think for future method already we discussed. Um, very good example is when you are having some task and you are trying to fire the a future method. So that time you would get an uncommitted work pending in your Apex class. So if people ask you, can you tell me few errors that you have come across in this async Apex? Yes, these questions can be asked anytime. So for example, you can say, hey, I tried to update my logic on setup objects and non-setup objects. Let's say I'm updating user object and I'm updating a standard object or custom object in the same transaction. Then I got a mixed daemon error. This is actually an error which you get. Or in a trigger program, you're trying to do a call out. So then you get uncommitted work, pending work. So look at this. On a scenario of an SF account, you're trying to update the SAP related account. So in a trigger only you're trying to update. Generally, when we update a record, the first and foremost thing is your trigger is running. If at all you return a trigger on it, so getting. So first thing is when you try to insert or update a record, the first thing is at the background gonna run is any triggers you written. Okay, if you tell your trigger written, then order of execution comes in picture. So what it indicates, the first thing is indicates, okay, you have written some validation rule, workflow, process builder, flows, anything you written, okay, it checks that. So if anything we have that, first they would run it and then only they allow to you to save a record. Now you don't have any configuration like say workflow or something, but you written a trigger. In the trigger, you're trying to do an update activity on SAP. So the moment you save a record, you're trying to update a record to SAP. So we don't have any such options. Hey, while trying to update a trigger logic, you are trying to update SAP. What you do is you try to put your integration logic inside the trigger. Of course, it can run, but what happens is it says, firstly, your record is not at all saved. It's still yet to be committed. While doing that only, you're trying to do someone's call out. Where I cannot say whether it's firstly, I'm not sure about whether in Salesforce the record is getting saved. And how can I send you to SAP? So that time it says uncommitted work pending. You can copy this error and you can just copy this. So now my laptop is screen crazy. Uncommitted work pending in Salesforce. So now this error at the moment we put it. So so already an article is also present in Salesforce saying that why it says uncommitted work pending. It says you have uncommitted work pending. Please commit or roll back the before calling out. So if at all you're reviewing in UI to do this activity, if you are using an UI and specifically that you're dealing with the visual first page, yes, of course they have an options to separate or split the transaction to two Ajax process. See, they're trying to do a call out here, and they're trying to do insert activity here. But this is okay. So they are, however, I wanted to separate the transaction. This is something on the UI you assume it. But let's see. See, here it says, okay, let's say you're trying to do a call and then you're trying to insert activity and then you're doing call. See what happens they're saying here. Following several of the steps will fail. You're doing a call out and you're trying to insert and again you're trying to do a call out. Or you're trying to insert or update and you instantly doing a call out. So this all will fail because Salesforce doesn't do. Why? Because you are trying to do an activity, it's not yet committed, and you're trying to do a call out. So which is not accepted in Salesforce because we are not sure whether the record would get saved. Of course, we're not sure unless and until the committed record comes out of the transactions. Only then you can be sure about that, saying that okay, this logic is completed. So, so how do I assume that whether this is completed? You are in a single transaction only, and if you've lost the transaction, then you cannot initiate another one. So that is the reason I wanted to run the transaction in a two different phase and a separate transactions. To do this activity, first we have to do with the future. You either need to commit the transaction and make the callout prior to any database changes or move your callout to a future method. So when you do this future method, what does this? It runs in two different transactions. Or if you're using something like VF page or something, you can use Ajax transaction where you can separate the, again, they're also doing the same activity. They're trying to do a separate transaction. Your insert let it go in one transaction and let my callout go in one transaction. There's no issue at all because these future methods are void methods. They don't return anything. If I wait for you only, then it's a problem because I cannot wait for a long running process. I don't know whether in 10 minutes it'll run or 20 minutes it'll run. So our system resource cannot wait for you. So what to do is we fire you and then we forget. You just do all the calculations and you update later stage to the Salesforce. It's okay. So when you have team the CPU resource available, you try to execute and then get back. So we don't have any urgency. Right now we have to get the value. So in that case, you just also jump into future methods. So that's the best case to answer for it. So, which any errors if you have gone through with the Async Apex, so then you have to tell about this uncommitted work pending. So that time this happens. Of course, when I start writing the what do you say integration class, so that time what I do is I flatly write a logic and then I get this error and show you out. So you have uncommitted work. Why uncommitted work came in, I will say you. And now to avoid that, I'll surely use a future method. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So till then, what we do is, yes, of course, in the previous class, I went on to write. What is the non-knowledge article? Okay. So I think in the past class, in one of the Apex class, I think I've written a future method and showed you, I think, how a future method for insert logic works. A sample controller. Oh, yeah, this is the one. So future methods were written here. You just go simply call the class name dot method name because it's a static class name dot method name. You do it. So it'll try to insert a record, but they're in a different transaction. I think in the logs you saw yesterday, it says future handler. So these all indicates okay they are the one who run on future methods. And you can go to Apex jobs and you can see such future method is run and what is the transaction they did it and how many records they process. So all they have these things. Of course, this future method, I will give more explanations when we are trying to do with integration. So let's say we are trying to pass a record and we'll see how this it works. So, so there we can answer this. Hmm. Otherwise, what we have to do is we have to get into a Queueable Apex, I think. So any questions on to the syntax or understanding on feature methods? Because we have talked about enough here. So mixed email we talked, uncommitted we talked, and we also just simply indicates that at the rate feature orientation is enough, more than enough to write on a method. For example, public static void we have, and of course the very important thing is there should be a void method first feature method, and moreover I cannot send in nice objects here. I can send the collections. Collection means what? Um, Collection of ID strings, all that you can pass, but you cannot pass the entire object like that. So last time we tried to pass a map of an account, so that failed. So they have input parameters also defined what should be passed here. And then again, it's a normal process where you try to query a record, you try to do all the activity. It's all the same activity. It never changes. So moreover, what I'm trying to say is, you just put these annotations and you can execute on the any method that you want to do it, and call them wisely where you want to make them to run a separate transaction. Let's say I'm trying to deal with a trigger, but from there, a method also can be fired to another method, but that method can be future where they run in a different transaction. Though you are in a trigger, I know it, but that particular guy would run in a different transaction. And whenever the CPU is available, they try to fetch, update. So your transaction would be ending it, but their transaction would may end when the time is available and they execute and update the Salesforce record. So these are the important points which I want to say. So where they should have at the rate feature annotation and they should be static void. And of course, the parameters can be primitive data types. Like so you can have array data type also, or any collections you can have, but you cannot put an S object there. Like say account contact, you cannot directly put there. Um, and the other one is so the common pattern anyone who passes generally they pass the IDs, list of IDs. So you pass a list of ID here and then you query later them. For example, see here you try to pass a list of IDs. You say account IDs. So using these IDs, you can query a record here list of accounts again. So they are not allowing you to pass an S object, right? So you can pass a just randomly this ID and you can query them again here. So with the queried record, you try to process them. So this is what you have to do best practice. But you can directly get an list of account like this, you can't get it. So this you can't get it. They are not allowing with this subject basically. So either a subject means it's a custom object, a standard object, anything it is. You pass an ID based on IDs, you query again in the for feature method because they are not. You can't if you put in a few for loop also. If this method is called in the for loop also, this will not impact. Why? Because it is firing each and every feature call differently. So you can query a number of records also, and that they will not fall under the for loop type. Why it indicates is because they are running on void. I mean, they are not returning instantly. So whichever is not returning instantly, so they will not count against the governor limits. So I'll tell you here. simple. I mean, this I won't save it. So let me put this way. So this is a for loop which hits the governor limits. So for example, I say, I think my CP slow down. I think I have to restart the system. It's okay. Meanwhile, anyhow, so Mati, what I'll do is I'll restart the system. In 2 minutes, it's gonna end this. So if I restart my system, it'll be pretty faster.
Okay.
Okay, so there I'll start again with the a simple syntax I want to explain. So writing a for loop, you calling a method where it hit the daemon limit, and writing same for loop, calling a fetch method will not hit the daemon limit.
Okay.
So that simple example I want to tell you. And again, so I will explain about a queueable method. Okay, so then
Okay.
we'll jump into if we have time, so we'll talk about the integration at least a kickstart. So what is a prerequisite required for you in order to test service, and what is the dummy service that we're going to test it? Let's say we take it from a trailhead or we take it from the resource which wherever it is available. And how do you progress the hit and trial results? We'll see them. So we'll not
Okay.
be today, but at least we'll try to start what are the things required in order to test them.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd stop now to restart my system. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes it'll take. So again, you can join them.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
any questions on the future methods? Because after this we're gonna jump onto the quickly on
I'm
simple
good.
follow, and then we're gonna jump onto the cube.
Yeah.
Okay, great then. So let me stop sharing this. Yeah. So yeah, what I was saying is, so there's a for loop here. So let's assume you are trying to do some activity here. Account, AC, and then account list record you're trying to process here. So this account list record is already acquired assume. So here you are trying to call a method now. So this method could be again some class name dot uh, some method. Let's say create contact, something like this method you're doing it, and it's a call. It cannot be create contact also. You are trying to let's say fetch contact. We are passing account.id. Now when each time you are trying to process this for loop, let's say this account list is having 1,000 record, I think. Already this guy is having 1,000 record. This for loop would run 1,000 times, and each time you are passing an account ID here, so you're trying to call this method. Great. So now in this
Mm-hmm.
method, what you're trying to do is this fetch contact method. With the help of this account ID, whatever you passed as an input as string ID, something they would have given here, and you're trying to query a contact here. Something like this, you're trying to do a contact here, and you may return something. Return con record. I'm just writing simple pseudocode here, saying that hey, this is a for loop you have, and that to fetch contact is a method you have. You're passing each and every account ID here, And optionally, this snippet is what trying to do is fetch contact method is trying to query the contact, query the contact and returns the contact record. So you may be acquiring a record which is relevant contact you're trying to query and returning something here. Tell me now. So this guy is 1000 record, and this guy is also querying 1000 times. So querying a record maximum we can do, I think 100 circle queries you can issue up to 100 circle queries we can issue. So according to this 1000 times this record loop runs, and your query is going to get caught into it because it runs more than 100 times. It runs 1000 times here. So that time this method logic will fail because it in the governor limit. So such pseudocode will get fail, isn't it? So your
You're
record is
right.
having 1000 records in the for loop, and then they also having some other query and they're returning it. So whatever it is, so for loop is running, I'm query I'm running. So this query statement would be running for 1000 times. So then this would be a caught for a DML. Sorry, maybe for DML or you're doing whatever the query exception. So we say that governor limit has reached. You can't run more than 100 circle queries in a transaction. So we know that we don't know that because since we call this method, then this method is doing having a query here. They keep running in. So they keep running in for 1000 times. That will have an issue. So to avoid this, so you generally have to follow some process to write the best practice. Before coming here only, you try to frame a map, account, contact, all that you do it. So one way, so this all is returning something. Look at this. This is returning something. So I just wanted to compare a future method here. If you have a future method or any async methods, so they try to call the same way, but they do not have impact to the something like returning a concept like this because future try to call in void. Basically, future would they run in void methods, and their kernel itself is different. So, for example, the same thing. If this method is running, um, okay, we'll put this async method, which may cause no, which will cause for sure, which will cause circle limit error. But here, using async method, same thing how can be avoided. So this can be avoided with the best practice of writing a query, a contact, account, associate stuff also if it have been done. Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fine. It seems like
Okay.
Kumar has joined. So, hey Kumar. Okay, no problem. So let's continue. So we're just saying about the for loop methods which we are having here. Um, with the sync methods which if you try to run this, so they may be getting into caught of an exception, saying that circle limiter will get it. In a future method, the same applying logic will not cause that. I'm saying, but because they run independently. So how do they run independently? Account, fetch, contact, right? But this contact, I would not have a return type. So I would say public static void the app. So they won't return anything here. Giving, of course, ID you can process, and with the help of ID, they are querying a contact. Fine. Querying a contact, or they may be updating a contact also fine. What I'm trying to say is this won't impact the query limit exception. Why? You are calling a method inside the for loop, and this method is calling, and it is fire and forget. It fired and forgot also. Now this method runs how? Only when you have at the rate future So they run independently whenever the resources are available. So they run in different, and this transaction would be different. Every for loop which is having 1,000 records, so they're running in different. So this or this for loop would be one transaction, and each time with this method is called, they would be running in another transaction. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you query here also, they will not impact to a socket limits. They will not consider to be query limit here, because each and every one are running in a different zone and different transaction. So when I consider to, if all are in the same transaction, only then I count your queries. For example, here all this transaction happening in a single transaction. So only you're trying to do a query limit count. 1,000 record is coming in. Okay, one query count headed. Then next another for loop goes. Then this all happens is because you're on the same transaction, and I'm just keep counting of your query. So more than 100, I'll throw error there only. But here, this guy doesn't have an option. Of course, I have run into for loop. So one it is run. So the moment this is run, it called a feature method. So what I'm trying to say is, they are running an independent transaction. When they go to independent transaction, we will not have that count to be added here, because they find something different and they are running a different transaction. So Salesforce don't count them into a Garner limits. But if you keep returning them and then you do all the stuff in one single transaction, of course they get accounted. So this simple differences I want to tell you, Murthy. So how did you got the point?
Yeah, I got it.
So what should we do is now, I want to write an async Apex for the Queueable job. So basically, let's compare the very few things about the future and Apex. Sorry, what is it? Queueable Apex. Compare the Queueable. So generally, future methods, no. So that future methods only you're trying to make it into Queueable activity, because the chaining of a job for like how batch cluster is happening, one batch can call another batch, so they cannot be done in the future method, because a future method cannot call another future method. So for that reason, Queueable came in picture. And again, so to do a chaining of future jobs, Queueable is the only way we can do it. When the system resources are available, they can do it. Okay, let's compare the Queueable and this guys. Future methods cannot have S objects as a params to deal with. So when you call a future method, no, I cannot pass your S object as a params. But whereas Queueable um, can contain, look at this guys. Future method, they don't allow S object as a params. So already we discussed, right? A method referring only IDs you have to process, and inside that you can process them. Or you can pass a collection of IDs, collection of strings, like that you can do it, but you cannot pass account to custom objects, or like say stamp something, you cannot process them.
Okay.
So this is something like, let's say we will write the statement there, public. So why public static void, and so method. So you write something here. So where you can't say basically you can pass account like this. So this not allowed. But as whereas this Queueable guys, they can take it. They can take the input as an account object. It's allowed here. So this is what I'm saying. So let's talk about the second point. Um, When future jobs you are running it, you can just run and check them into where they are running. So how do you monitor them? You can go to Apex jobs and you can monitor them. But whereas this guys you can monitor wherein, so you can go and check into schedule jobs. So I'm saying where you can monitor this and where you can monitor this. You can monitor them in say Apex jobs. There will be feature handler they will be running in, and you can check there. For Queueable, you can check in schedule jobs where actually to run through.
So we cannot run future method those jobs as scheduled jobs.
No, you can't do that.
Okay.
So it's just simple method it's gonna fire, but we cannot schedule them and all. So
Okay.
for transactions, you wanted to run them separately. That's the maximum we can do, but we can't schedule them. So a future cannot call another future method. So this already I said one of the important comparison. And here Queueable can be called Queueable can be called either from you're running a future method or a batch class you're calling. You're working on a batch or a future method. Anywhere this Queueable can be called. But this guy cannot call by themselves. Future cannot be called by another future method. Future can never be queued. So what it indicates for future methods, of course, I said no chaining of features are cannot be called by one called method or another. They cannot be queued. But these guys can be queued because they themselves say as queuable apex. Queuable apex can be using queuable apex. I can do queuable jobs. So basically, you can say using queuable apex, we can put this way. So it depends on the edition also guys. How many jobs you can queue up to if you think it depends on the editions. Like say for example developer edition it's up to 5. How many if you say for developer edition it's up to 5 jobs you can queue them. Maybe for the production they can give 150, so it depends. So here future cannot be never be queued. Here these guys can be queued based on the apex jobs. So not only one, you can queue up to 5 in a developer edition. Maybe in a production it is different. So it can be more than that also. So we're just comparing here a queuable and a future class. Why we want to have this is yes, these guys cannot accept minus a subject. These guys can take it, and of course they can check in the apex job. These guys can check in skill jobs. They cannot be one feature method cannot call another feature method, or they can never be queued. And queuable can be called from a future or a batch. Yes, of course they can be chained up to 5 jobs. They can chain. But this is something queuable is something like an interface. It's not like a future where you try to add the right annotations you put and have a future method there. So Queueable is something like an interface where you have to implement them, like how batch Apex or schedulable Apex you did. It's the same way we have to do it. So let's write a syntax here. Sorry for that. So if you write a public class or a global class, you can write, and the class name could be sample queueable, and then we write in implements. So then you put a queueable interface to this queueable only. For how we have schedulable here, database batchable for other guys. So like same with this, we are implementing the interface. And this guy also has like our schedule class has execute method the same way. Public and all, we have to always have a void method. Why? Because async methods are, look at guys, all the async methods are void methods. They don't return anything here so far. So public void execute, and inside this, so it's all well-known thing that we give it always, we give a queueable context. For schedulable, we give schedulable context. For batchable, we give batchable context. For queueable, we give queueable context. And then context. Let's say QC, queueable context. So this is how we try to write a logic. So here you may try to call a future method, call a future method, or call a batch Apex. So like this, you can do any logic that you want to call, you can do them. So we'll see an example how this queueable would be helping us. So otherwise, in syntax, any questions do you have, guys? Hello.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I think when it comes to integrations, I think we can add on more onto the future. But
So,
let's,
so we
yeah,
have both future and queueable, right?
yeah.
So we have advantage of queueable, then why we need future at all?
See, see, all the times you need not to be a chaining things can be done. I mean, your resources. Okay, let's say we have a single object process and we have a bulk of objects to process, right?
Hmm.
Singleton record. You're trying to deal with single records. You write account A is equal to new account, and then you're inserting an account. The same thing you want to insert with the bulk account. What you do is use list account, list of account, and then you add all the accounts to a list and find you're inserting a list.
Okay.
So there's a two-way of process where you can deal with one record or we can deal with bulk records. A future method which indicates for a single one purpose. So let's say only for this bunch of records I want to progress. A simple fire for a future it will work out. Now when you say Queueable, they are trying to do a chaining of jobs. Okay, this I run. After this completion, I'll run another one. So that is a drawback of future which they can do it. So now straight away I cannot say go here and the Queueable now. So again, there are also takes of chaining of jobs, and moreover, these all guys are whenever this is resources available only they're taking in. For simple logic, you can go for a feature, and when you want to have too many things to be run on the same operations, you can use Queueable. So it's all depends on the use case that we do it.
Okay.
For example, on a trigger, I wanted to fire only for this simple update record. So then future would be easy enough to get started there only. Or some integration call you're doing it, and they have to run a different transaction. Only one transaction you're going to run, and that to be in a separate method. Okay, now future is simple there. When I want it to be a queueable is, so where I want to see, for example, I'm firing a future method, so that is trying to run, and I want to be sure that after that future method run, only then you have to run the second method. You getting? First, you are trying to progress the account objects. So when our account object progress, and then we got updated with something onto the account. So based on the account and record, only then I can go fetch the contact. So the dependency I have now. First, you have to update the account, and then you have to update the contact, and then only you have to update some custom object. So now, if you define these things, and future method cannot run by one after the other. So there's no any definitions. This guy only will run first, or that guy only will run first. If all three of them is fired in on their own way, What if contact record is updating first? They skipped out. I mean, before account is getting updated, contact is got updated. You getting my point? So they don't have a control onto the which particular feature will update first. And just like it's a running race, so you have been fired. So anyone can come first. Either the account or can come for contact or can come first, or any other custom object can come first. So in that case, we don't have a or you say the hierarchy of one after the other. It is, doesn't have it. So whereas if you have used a queueable here, so we can say that hey first go contact, so sorry go first account, and then after that okay go contact and then go custom object you can say. So where it is running a different transaction and also they are following a queue things. Okay, you are the first and you are the next and you are the last. So that we can define in the queueable.
Got it.
So that is the biggest advantage which queueable apex they say. Of course they can call a future I said or they can call an apex batch I said. So while I'm just doing a queue, so first I would say that hey go run for the account, and after this one more feature I would call. So they are next contact, and then they'll say the next is okay some other objects. So this all indicates hierarchy of one after the other. But if I solely do with the future, so they don't have any such restrictions. They can run anyone. They can run the first one, and so if it is without an account, you are trying to update a contact. So then actually our logic would be missing something there. So to avoid this, we have a queueable, and it's again. So they follow the queue structure, so one after the other, and again they also falling under the Async Apex. They will be a long running process, so you cannot tell them when the resource is available or not. So once resource available, so first would execute, and then after the next one would execute, and so on.
Okay.
Now, how do I know this one after the other you're trying to call? How do I get to know that if it's same? So in this execute method, no, so we have something called as system.enqueue job. We have a method called as system.enqueue. You put the system.enqueue job, and then in a for loop you try to run this guys. So that means what? It can be for loop or it can be single record. It depends on the process that you save it and then you find them. Um, it can be in a single, not in a for loop also. Where the system.enqueue job you're trying to pass a, let's say, a list of, I said you, where you try to pass in the future method you're trying to pass only the one account record. So here system.enqueue job is actually accepting the params where it can be IDs or it can be like these accounts. Getting? For this method, for a future method, you're trying to say only one account. I cannot pass this. Whereas in NQ job, I can pass list of account and account list records. I can pass like this. Now using this list, you are trying to progress into the queueable method and then you start executing them. Sorry guys, this system.nq job won't be. So you are working on some other class in some other XYZ class. So you are calling this what do you say? So this method system.nq job and this particular activity you're calling it. So it knows where exactly I wanted to call, which particular class you wanted to call. You will mention the class name there. For example, so this is sample queueable class, right? So this sample queueable class will be calling here. And then which particular method you're sending it and that particular method value will be putting there. For example, this way, new sample class. And the method which you're trying to execute is that you're going to put it here. Um, if it is a constructor, they are having it. So this is a void method they're dealing with. Of course, they can also have a constructor. So in this constructor, they can intake the a list of account ID also, a list of accounts also. So now the act list, which with the help of act list you process, and you should do some logic here. So here system dot enqueue job new, and then you try to pass an account here. You can pass list like this an account here. So this is a class which is doing some activity, and they are trying to call this enqueue job. So the moment they call it, it will go to the sample queue interface, and then whatever the logic you're trying to process, it will call, and then based on that, you may execute some logic also here. I think we're looking at a simple example. You will get to know what I have to deal with. So I'm saying that enqueue jobs are called in different class, and so while you're passing these enqueue jobs, you're trying to call your class and their constructor values. It will all come all together here. So maybe you're having a account like this, public list of. So like this you're having it, and this could be ACT list. This dot it is ACT list is equal to. So what are the values is processed from the constructor? We got it here. So now in this executable context, you may process again with this for loop like this. Not that list. You should pass the ACT list. So I think now it will make sense for you. Of course, in this class, I'm passing the account list. It's a constructor. I'm passing it. It will first come here. While the moment it comes here, it just checks if this value is assigned to whom. Or there is already a variable here. To that value, you are associating it. And their return type and this guy return type all same. So that's the reason this list you are mapping to this guy. So this dot at list means the nearest guy is this guy. All the values just float in, all updated here. So now this will have all the latest value. Now just go to one method and then you start processing with the doing a for loop, and you wanted to update some logic on account, you can do them. Update logic, I'll put it here. Is getting? So you have a class where you call a method, and that is trying to call a sample Queueable class interface. It goes here, and what is the value passed as a constructor? You pass an account list of records, and that has come here. Well, coming here, so this account list and the local variable account list we have mapped there. So all our values are being stored now this here. So with the help of this, we are trying to process the for loop. Because directly you cannot pass an act list here. It won't says that hey, where is this variable is defined. I don't understand. So you have to map them to the local variable like this, and that variable you can use across in the Queueable program. So any questions here?
So execute will get called when system.enqueue job is called, huh? Or
Yeah, you're calling this enqueue job. So the moment you call the enqueue job, this particular class has been invoked. Not exactly exit method. This particular interface has got invoked. So how you say that is this is the entire interface invoked? Because you're calling the constructor. The moment you say new, this is equivalent to this way. That is equivalent to something like this. ABC is equal to new. How do you call in the constructor? The same way it is.
yeah, I understand that. But execute, how is it's getting automatically called
No, we are
once you
not. We're
execute
not.
that
We're not
enqueue?
directly focusing on execute here. We're trying to call the constructor here. So by that way, when you call the
Yeah, yeah.
constructor, so we assign a value. Since this whole
Well,
method is called executed, so this would automatically call because it is like one after the other
okay,
method is next. It should be executed. You invoke the constructor class once, and
okay,
next thing is automatically is executed.
okay, got it.
So people would try to focus with the constructor, or people would directly try to execute with the execute method. So there are multiple options. So how do you want it? We can take them. So let's have a proper example here, and then we'll wind up on the Queueable class. So any questions here so far, guys?
I'm good.
Okay, now what I'll do is using a Queueable Apex, so I'll try to update a record. So that too I have there have a variable context. So I wanted to do execute on account record. Let's go to here, developer console, and let me write an interface here. So far, we're just seeing the logic how it works. Now let's write an Apex class which says about Queueable context. Account bash written. Now let's write account account Queueable class. Okay, perfect. So this is no more a simple account class. So we're gonna say that implements Queueable interface. And if I try to save this, still 7. Invalid type, spelling wrong. See, a class account class must be implements the method called as execute. So in this particular interface, there's a method called as execute. You must implement them because in this particular interface we have been defined. So of course we have to use them. So that's the reason we are using. So public void execute. So public void execute, and then we'll have a Queueable context there. And I'm putting a variable as QC. So why always these guys having holding with the context in any of the asynchronous program you see? So they are holding the current execution of the programs will relay there only. So what is happening? The context will hold the current execution of the logic. So you have progressing with 1,000 records in the context, I can get them. Or what has happened with whether it is went wrong, ID of the job, everything you can get from the context. All right. So next, what I want to do is I wanted to update a record, which following by something like a simple update. I want to do it an account. So maybe just I'll see any other records. We have something on accounts to figure out something. Hey, this is the key things that I wanted to update. Okay. So my intention is to update one or more records, right? So whoever is an individual account, whoever is an individual account, only to those guys I'll say that person. So in the braces I'll add a value called as person. Person means we will indicate they are a personal account. Personal account means individual account. So how do we do that? So in this execute method, I wanted to say that hey, these are the guys who are been set to be uh, independent record or individual records, whatever it is. So so based on that, I want to try to execute here. So let's say I will send a list of records and they will be holding the individual accounts. And here is the logic. I'm going to write something on the account basis is equal to add, add list, and this is the add list record which is processing. I would say that account dot name is equal to account dot name. So this I'll try to add to a uh, update list. Okay. So this is simple for loop logic I've written, but so we don't know where this QC will hold a list of records. So that we're unsure, right? So where this account list is coming from. So I'm unsure. Same thing I'm gonna do it here. So how did you do a simple a constructor type of an account list? The same thing I wanted to execute. Look at this. But here the class name is public. Class name is this, and list of account list we are processing here. Uh, let's say account list. Okay, this account list we are adding it here. Public list of account. Okay, mapped. This account list is mapped here, and this act list is our local variable. So if you're getting confused, we'll write a full name. Account list which is coming from outside, so that we are mapping to our local variable, and that local variable we are using it here. So because if you directly use this account list, it says the variable does not exist. So for that reason only we start using this, where I can assign a variable and I can map the variable there. Here's any questions? So simple interface we written a constructor here, and we written a void method here. Now you can have a question that how this would execute. I don't know how this would execute. So simple thing is we have to write a class. In that class, we're gonna call this Queueable Apex. Or you're writing a trigger, so that is calling this Apex. So anything can be done. One second, guys. Hello. Yeah. So what I want to do is I just wanted to read this class. So I will create a new class. How I did the logic there. Hmm. I will say this way. Invoke account Queueable class. So in this invoke apex class, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to write a method, and that method would be purposely saying that okay, it will gonna call a Queueable apex. So this could be any method because we are firing it out, right? So public, so void, static void, public static void, and we are trying to send a list of records. So what I'm going to do is fetch account. So this is a method which I'm writing. So I'm so now in this method only I'm trying to pass who are the accounts they're going to execute. So that will go to this particular list and they map it here and then our execute method will fire. I won't do any update operation. I'm just simply going to filter the records and send it out. That is the maximum idea which I want to have. While doing this activity, I want to figure out the fetch account for individual customers. So this is my idea. Fetch account for individual customers. This I'll fetch and then fire the Queueable matrix and they will execute. So in the trigger handlers, I think we have used record types, right? So let me take them because I want to say who is the one I'm going to invoke there. Record type ID. So I didn't have any labels used for the other guys. Only for restaurant I have labels. Um, so let me use quickly. Go to account manager, count, record types, copy this individual customer. Only for these guys we wanted to update a record. So record type we brought it up here. So now I want to send a list of account now. Send account list. So this is the one which I wanted to query and send this guys. So select ID comma name from count where okay. So I'm just my motive is just to wanted to update my individual customer. So that's the reason I put as record time. I think this session would end up in 1 minute. You have to rejoin again. So in meanwhile I'll tell you. So I'm just trying to query the list of account where the record type ID matches with this individual customer. Of course, it's a send a list of customers, right? So now I have to call the Queueable class. Where I say system dot enqueue job. So the object type we have to mention here. So what is that we're going to pass? So new. What is the class name that we have? Account Queueable Apex. So in this constructor, what you're trying to pass? So we are passing the send account list records. So guys, the moment what you do is, so we try to send the send list account and I'm putting a job ID here as the system.debug. Why? Because so this whatever the queried records would return an ID and that we're still trying to save it here. Okay, so a separate class, whatever we return, this is the one which we have. And this is trying to call the account Queueable class where we're trying to send a list of account. It goes here to this account list and it maps to this particular variable as a local variable so that our execute method can now pick them up. Or else what happens is if we don't have this account list, so it doesn't understand what is this variable is, where it is coming from. So that is the reason we have a constructor type. We've assigned this variable mapped here. So the moment we send this account list records, so we are trying it to map to this local variable and we're just trying to process this. Anyhow, the moment you call this constructor, so they will try to start their one of the methods which is there in the class. Okay, so the moment you update here, what is their expectation? So your person should be updated next to your an individual customers. That is what we have sent a list of records here. Okay, so this is a log which is executed, and then we saw the job ID. How do I execute this? Control E. So class name dot method name. Simply if you call. So of course you are trying to frame all this query and then it is sending out to system dot job enqueue. And the moment I do it, so I could see in the logs The first one, if I just open it, I could see a job ID. Second one, if I open, I just see the list of records got updated. So that way, two records got updated. So if I come to Apex jobs in the query, I can see them. Who are the guys recently got updated? So Queueable job is the one which is recently updated, that which we fired here, where we say Queueable handlers are no. So that's recent Queueable job we have here. And these are the jobs which we run in the past. So this is something that okay. Yes, of course we set from a scheduler. So from the UI we scheduled. So I think for the last 2 days it is running. So every night 12 o'clock it is running. So one is from the UI we have set. If we go to schedule jobs, from one is from the UI we set to run on 12 a.m. Another one we set from the developer console, which is again run on the same. Both are running the same Apex class. So that's the reason you can see two jobs are running there. If you set via from the UI, you can have manage option where you can see the timing and everything can change. But if you set via the developer console, you don't have any options. If you come back Apex jobs for the same time, it is running two jobs. Yeah, we can stop them later stage, just like want to show that how it is running. And otherwise, I think we have done with the Apex batch jobs, scheduler jobs, future methods, and Queueable jobs. I think all we have done with this. Tomorrow, let's see on how to do with the integration and integration invoking some open source services APIs, let's say currency converters or finding the locations. So we will have some APIs. We can hit them by through a REST call and see how it works. We can use a future method also for them also. And then we'll start writing a test classes. So because so far we have to write a test classes on the so many Apex class, whatever we have covered. So then it'll be easy for us. Because a test class is one of the very important things to cover a test coverage. If without a test coverage, we can't pass it to our production. So every class should have a test class associated to it. So like so far, what are the classes we have written? So we should have a test coverage to complete them. I think when we kickstart with the integrations, so along with integrations, if we write some test cases for the triggers or the account classes, whatever you have done, I think that is a good perspective we have to follow through. So based on this, a test coverage we complete. We'll take a pause there because integrations is important. So the moment that taking a pause on completing all the test classes, then we'll move to the components like our LWC. So it will be having more easy for us. Yeah. So that's it, guys. If you have any questions, please get back to me. I'll answer to you. Thank you all. Bye bye.